Welcome to my channel, Rise Up with Steve. Please hit like, subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends.
Let me tell you something real. When someone walks out of your life and leaves you broken, confused, questioning your worth, that pain doesn't disappear just because they decide to come back. Time doesn't erase disrespect. Silence doesn't heal betrayal. And apologies don't automatically fix damage. A man can come back because he's lonely. He can come back because what he thought was better didn't work out. He can come back because he misses the comfort, the access, the love you gave so freely. But here's the truth you must understand before you open that door again. Coming back is easy. Changing is hard. See, love isn't proven by words. Love is proven by consistency. Anybody can say, "I'm sorry." Anybody can cry. Anybody can promise the world when they're afraid of losing you. But growth shows up in behavior, not emotion. If he hurt you once and learned nothing, history isn't repeating itself by accident. It's repeating itself by permission. When someone comes back after hurting you, the first mistake most people make is believing the return itself is proof of change. It's not. Coming back is easy. Anybody can come back when they're lonely, when life humbles them, when the options they thought were better disappear. But real change doesn't announce itself with words. Real change shows up quietly, consistently, and over time through actions. See, words are cheap when emotions are high. A person can say, "I miss you. I've realized your value. I'll never do it again," and genuinely feel those words in the moment. But feelings don't build trust. Behavior does. If someone hurt you before, it wasn't because they didn't know what they were doing. They knew. They just didn't think the consequences would be permanent. So when they come back, the most important thing is not how emotional they are, but how accountable they're willing to be. Pay close attention to whether they take full responsibility or if they still try to soften the truth. Statements like, "I was confused," "You know I was going through a lot," or "we both made mistakes," are often signs that the person hasn't truly owned their actions. Change begins with accountability, not excuses. If they can't say, without defending themselves, "I hurt you and it was wrong," then they haven't grown enough to be trusted again. Another thing you must understand is that consistency matters more than intensity. Someone can come back with grand gestures, long messages, emotional conversations, even tears. But intensity fades. Anyone can be intense for a week, a month, even a few months. Consistency is what exposes the truth. Do they show up when it's inconvenient? Do their actions stay the same when you stop being impressed and start observing? Do they respect your boundaries even when it frustrates them? If change is real, it doesn't rush you. A changed person understands that trust takes time to rebuild. They don't pressure you to move on already or remind you how much effort they're making. They allow you to heal at your pace because they know they are the reason the wound exists. Someone who is truly different will be patient, not defensive. You also need to notice whether their new behavior is conditional. Are they kind only when things are going their way? Are they respectful only when you're calm and agreeable? Real growth isn't selective. If the same disrespect shows up under stress, anger, or disagreement, then the change is surface level. That means the old patterns are still alive, just waiting for the right moment to return. Sometimes the hardest truth is this: people don't always come back because they've changed. They come back because you were safe, you were familiar, you loved deeply, and losing that comfort scared them. Missing you does not automatically mean they're ready to treat you better. It just means they felt the absence of what you provided. That's why watching actions over time is not cruelty, it's wisdom. You're not punishing them by being cautious. You're protecting yourself. Love that is real will respect that protection. Love that is selfish will resent it. If someone truly changed, you won't have to beg for clarity, consistency, or respect. You'll feel calmer, not anxious. You'll feel secure, not confused. Your intuition will rest instead of warning you. And if, despite all the promises, you still feel like you're shrinking, doubting, or preparing for pain again, that feeling is your answer. When someone returns after hurting you, it can stir emotions you thought you had already buried. Old memories resurface, hope mixes with fear, and suddenly you're standing at a crossroads between what you felt and what you learned. This is where many people get confused because the heart remembers love, but the mind remembers pain. And if you ignore either one, you risk losing yourself all over again. One of the most important things to understand is that pain changes people, but not always in the way we hope. Sometimes it changes them for the better, and sometimes it just makes them better at saying the right things. When someone comes back, they may sound more mature, more self-aware, more emotional. But awareness without discipline is useless. Knowing what went wrong is not the same as having the strength to live differently. A person who truly changed doesn't just talk about the future. They respect the damage of the past. They don't expect instant trust or emotional access. They don't get offended when you're cautious. In fact, they understand your hesitation because they created it. If someone gets impatient with your healing, that impatience is proof they are thinking more about their comfort than your pain. Watch how they respond when you don't give them what they want. Do they still show up when you don't reassure them? Do they still act right when you don't immediately forgive them? A person who has grown doesn't need constant validation that they're being given another chance. They're willing to do the work even if the reward is uncertain. Another truth many people avoid is that coming back can sometimes be about control rather than love. When someone leaves, they assume you'll always be there. When they realize you're moving on, healing, or becoming stronger without them, their return can be driven by fear of losing access, not by respect. That's why you have to be careful not to confuse familiarity with destiny. Real love does not re-enter your life to destabilize your peace. It adds clarity, not confusion. It brings consistency, not emotional ups and downs. If someone comes back and your life immediately feels chaotic again, if you feel like you're walking on eggshells or questioning your worth, then whatever returned is not love. It's a lesson knocking twice. Pay attention to whether their actions require you to shrink. Do you have to lower your standards to keep them? Do you find yourself justifying things you once promised you would never tolerate again? Growth doesn't ask you to abandon your boundaries. It respects them. If someone can't meet you at your level of self-respect, then they don't belong in the life you're building. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not rush into a decision. Time reveals what words hide. Consistency reveals what emotions disguise. If someone is serious about change, they won't disappear when things slow down. They won't fade when the excitement wears off. They'll remain steady, respectful, and present. You also have to be honest with yourself. Are you considering giving them another chance because they've proven something or because you miss who you were with them? Loneliness can make us romanticize pain. It can make us forget nights of crying and focus only on moments of connection. But healing means remembering the whole story, not just the parts that felt good. If someone comes back after hurting you, the truth that matters most is not whether they say they love you. It's whether being with them feels safe now. Safe emotionally, safe mentally, safe spiritually. Because love without safety is just attachment. And attachment is not enough to build a future that doesn't break you again. When someone returns after hurting you, it can feel like the universe is giving you a second chance. But not every second chance is meant to be taken. Sometimes it's simply a moment meant to test how much you've learned about yourself. Pain has a way of sharpening your awareness. And if you ignore that awareness, you risk repeating the same cycle with the same outcome. One of the clearest signs of real change is how someone behaves when they are no longer in control. In the past, they may have felt secure knowing you would stay, forgive, or wait. When they come back, notice whether they respect your independence now. Do they honor your space, Or do they try to rush closeness to regain the same emotional position they once had? A person who has grown does not try to reclaim power. They try to earn trust. True remorse is quiet. It doesn't demand applause or forgiveness. It doesn't repeatedly remind you how much they've suffered since losing you. Instead, it focuses on the harm caused, not the pain felt by the person who caused it. If their regret centers more on how bad they felt than how deeply they hurt you, that's not accountability. It's self-pity. Another thing to watch is whether their change is rooted in fear or in understanding. Fear-based change only lasts as long as the fear does. Someone might behave better because they're afraid of losing you again, but once they feel secure, old habits return. Understanding-based change comes from recognizing why their behavior was wrong, not just why it cost them something. That kind of change is slower, but it's real. You should also observe how they handle disagreement now. Conflict reveals character. If, during tension, they revert to defensiveness, blame, or emotional withdrawal, then the foundation hasn't shifted. Real growth shows up most clearly when things aren't smooth. A person who has changed can listen without attacking and respond without trying to win. It's important to remember that loving someone doesn't mean you owe them access to your life. You can care about someone and still choose distance. Sometimes people return expecting forgiveness to come with full restoration. But forgiveness does not erase memory, and it does not require you to step back into a situation that once broke you. Pay attention to how you feel around them now, not how you felt before, and not how you hope to feel in the future, but how you feel in the present. Are you calmer or more anxious? Do you feel respected, or are you constantly explaining yourself? Your body often recognizes danger before your mind does. If your peace disappears the moment they reappear, that's information you shouldn't ignore. Growth also means respecting boundaries without resentment. A changed person doesn't test limits to see how much they can get away with. They don't make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. They understand that boundaries are the price of re-entry, not an insult. Sometimes the hardest lesson is realizing that someone can love you in their own way and still not be healthy for you. Love alone is not enough. Without respect, emotional safety, and consistency, love becomes a cycle of hope and disappointment. And you deserve more than surviving a relationship. You deserve to feel secure inside it. When someone comes back after hurting you, the truth that matters most is whether they align with the person you've become. If they only fit the version of you that tolerated pain, then their return isn't meant to continue the story. It's meant to show you how much you've grown. When someone comes back after causing you pain, it often feels like unfinished business. Emotions rise, memories replay, and the mind starts negotiating with the past. You remember the laughter, the connection, the moments that made you feel seen. But what you must also remember is the version of yourself that was hurt, confused, and slowly losing peace. Growth begins when you stop romanticizing who they were and start recognizing how they made you feel. One of the most important things to notice is whether their return is accompanied by humility. A person who has truly grown doesn't come back demanding the same position they once had. They don't act entitled to your time, your energy, or your forgiveness. Instead, they understand that trust was broken and that rebuilding it is a privilege, not a right. If someone comes back expecting things to immediately feel normal again, that's a sign they are more interested in comfort than change. Real change also shows in how someone reacts to your strength. If you've grown, healed, and become more self-aware, a person who hasn't done the same work will feel threatened by that. They may try to subtly bring you back to your old self, questioning your boundaries or making you feel like you're too much. Now, a person who belongs in your life will respect your evolution, not resist it. Watch how they speak about the past. Do they minimize it, joke about it, or brush it off as something that's over? Or do they acknowledge it with seriousness and respect? The way someone talks about past pain reveals whether they've truly reflected or are just trying to move forward without accountability. Healing doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means learning deeply from what did. Another key truth is that consistency over time matters more than any apology. Someone can behave perfectly when they are trying to get back into your life. They can be attentive, kind, and patient in the beginning, but masks fall with time. That's why you should never feel rushed to decide. Time will either confirm their growth or expose the same patterns returning. Patience protects you. Notice whether your needs are being honored or negotiated. A person who has changed doesn't bargain with your boundaries. They don't push you to accept less than what you've asked for. They understand that your standards are not punishment. They are protection shaped by experience. If someone makes you feel guilty for having boundaries, they haven't learned the lesson your pain was meant to teach them. It's also important to recognize that sometimes people come back because they miss the version of you that loved without limits. They miss the way you forgave quickly, the way you stayed quiet, the way you gave more than you received. But that version of you existed before you learned your worth. You don't owe anyone access to a version of yourself that cost you your peace. Listen closely to your intuition. It's not fear, it's memory combined with wisdom. If something feels off, even when everything sounds right, trust that feeling. Peace is not loud, but it is clear. Love that is meant for you will not require you to silence your inner voice. When someone returns after hurting you, the truth that matters most is whether being with them aligns with the self-respect you've built. If you have to abandon that self-respect to keep them, then their return is not a second chance at love, but a reminder of why you had to grow in the first place. When someone comes back into your life after causing deep pain, it often awakens emotions you believed you had already overcome. There is a pull between what you once shared and what you now understand. Memories can be powerful, but memory alone is not truth. Truth is found in patterns, and patterns are what originally taught you the lesson you had to learn. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that time automatically creates change. Time only creates change when it is used for reflection and growth. Someone can be gone for months or even years and return with the same mindset, the same emotional habits, and the same inability to love in a healthy way. Distance does not equal development. Growth is intentional, and you can see it in how someone carries themselves when they return. Notice whether they approach you with clarity or confusion. A person who has grown knows what they want and what they are willing to do differently. They don't come back unsure, testing emotional waters, or seeking reassurance before offering stability. They show up grounded, respectful, and clear in their intentions. Confusion is often a sign that the inner work was never done. Another truth is that real remorse does not come with expectations. Someone who genuinely understands the pain they cause does not demand forgiveness or reconciliation. They don't make you feel cruel for protecting yourself. Instead, they accept whatever outcome comes with humility because they know they are not owed another chance. Accountability is quiet and patient. Pay attention to whether their presence adds peace or tension to your life. Love that is healthy feels steady. It doesn't create anxiety or emotional whiplash. If someone returns and your nervous system goes into overdrive, if you feel alert, cautious, or emotionally guarded all the time, that's not healing, it's survival mode. You didn't heal just to live in fear again. It's also important to ask yourself whether you are being pulled by nostalgia or by reality. Nostalgia focuses on potential and selective memories. Reality focuses on behavior and consistency. Missing someone does not mean they are good for you. Sometimes you miss the version of yourself that existed before the pain, not the person who caused it. Watch how they handle your honesty. Can you speak openly without them becoming defensive or dismissive? Can you express concerns without it turning into an argument? Emotional safety is non-negotiable. If someone cannot hold space for your truth, they are not prepared to be part of your future. A person who has truly changed will not repeat the same emotional patterns under stress. life will test them again. Disagreements will happen. Pressure will return. Growth is proven in those moments, not in calm conversations about the past. If they respond differently now, with maturity, patience, and respect, that's evidence of evolution. You also need to recognize that sometimes someone comes back because you were a source of stability, not because they are ready to offer stability in return. They miss what you provided, not the responsibility of being a better partner. Love must be mutual in effort, not just in emotion. When someone comes back after hurting you, the truth that matters most is whether their presence supports the healed version of you. If you have to shrink, compromise your peace, or ignore your instincts to keep them, then their return is not aligned with the life you are building. You didn't heal to go backwards. You healed to move forward with wisdom. When someone reappears after hurting you, it can feel like fate is circling back, but not every return is meant to be a reunion. Some returns are revelations. They show you clearly whether the lesson was learned or only temporarily avoided. At this stage, the most important thing is not what they say, but what their presence demands from you. One powerful indicator of true change is how much emotional labor they expect from you now. A person who has not grown will still unconsciously rely on you to regulate their emotions, calm their fears, and reassure them of their worth. They return needing you in the same way they always did. A person who has grown returns whole. They don't drain you. They don't lean on you to fix what they refused to fix in themselves before. Pay close attention to whether they respect your silence as much as your attention. Growth understands restraint. If someone becomes uneasy, impatient, or insecure when you don't immediately engage, it shows they are still attached to control rather than connection. A changed person does not chase reassurance, they offer reliability. Another truth is that real transformation shows up in how someone treats your vulnerability. When you express hurt, fear, or hesitation, do they listen with openness, or do they rush to defend themselves? Do they sit with your discomfort, or do they try to explain it away? Emotional maturity means being able to hear painful truths without making them about oneself. If that capacity is missing, the foundation is still weak. You also need to observe whether their return requires you to compromise your standards. Standards are not walls meant to keep love out. They are filters that protect what you've worked hard to heal. A person who belongs in your life will rise to meet those standards, not argue them down. Resistance to your standards is resistance to your growth. Sometimes people return because life humbled them, not because wisdom transformed them. Struggle can make someone softer temporarily, but if the underlying mindset hasn't shifted, comfort will eventually bring back old behaviors. That's why patience matters. Rushing back into emotional intimacy before trust, if rebuilt, can blur the truth you need to see. Another quiet but important sign is whether they encourage your independence. A healthy partner does not feel threatened by your strength, your goals, or your self-respect. They don't try to anchor you to the past. They support the future you are moving toward, even if it means they must grow to keep up. It's also essential to recognize that forgiveness does not obligate you to reopen the door fully. Forgiveness is internal peace. Access is external and earned. You can release resentment and still choose distance. Choosing yourself is not bitterness. It's wisdom earned through experience. Listen to how your body responds when they are around or when you think about letting them back in. Do you feel calm, open, and grounded, or tense and guarded? The body remembers what the mind tries to rationalize. Peace is a form of truth. When someone comes back after hurting you, the truth that matters most is whether they fit into the life you've healed into, not the life you had to survive. If their presence requires you to abandon peace for familiarity, then the lesson is complete. Some people return not to stay, but to confirm that you are no longer who you used to be.